Millions of you Andy Griffith fans are probably hoping that I'm going to show you the actual town site of Mayberry, where Andy Griffith and Don Knotts did all their wonderful scenes back in the 1960s. I'm here to tell you it's not here anymore. That Desilu Studios behind me is exactly where the courthouse was. Hayden Street led directly into the RKO Studios over here, over this direction. And in the background, you'll see the Baldwin Hills. They overlook the entire RKO 40-acre studio. So these very distinctive jagged buildings here on Hayden Avenue were here back in the days of Mayberry. So for Andy Griffith and Don Knotts to enter the set here, they would have had to go right through here. Now, ironically, right outside where the studio was is a barber shop. Kind of reminds you that Floyd was here, Floyd the barber. This is Higuera Street. We're going to walk on the outer perimeter here of what was RKO Studios. There was approximately 28 acres here where they established a number of sets for Hollywood movies and TV shows, including Batman. Star Trek was shot here. Now, if you remember the one scene where Don Knotts, as Barney Fife, was confronted by two peddlers who refused his orders to leave the town of Mayberry, it would have been right over in this area. There was an earthen berm around the 40 acres on this side, on the north side, and it's where you would have seen Don Knotts do that scene with the two peddlers, and they confronted Barney. Barney was scared out of his mind, and he stuck to his guns, and he actually prevailed. Andy watched it happen, and he was very proud of his deputy that he solved the incident without any gun violence or any kind of bad things that would have happened to him. Barney, of course, was a stick figure and could have been destroyed. We're coming up to Helm and Higuera Avenue. So the Hogan's Hero set would have been in the northwest quadrant of the 40 acres. It would have been approximately on the other side of this building here. It's hard to imagine things the way they were back then because they've completely changed. All the sets have been completely destroyed. They were taken down in 1976. Like I said, it's almost impossible to believe that this was where the Hogan's Heroes section was. Now, way off in the distance over there on the south side would have been the Quonset huts where Gomer Pyle was filmed. Gomer Pyle was especially poignant for me to watch as a kid because I think it ran around 68. My uncle was in Vietnam and had been shot through the chest. A sniper's bullet came through the front and exited his back and almost killed him, but I remember it was about the same time. I'm coming up to Lucerne. This here would have been the complete western boundaries of the property, and on the other side are our homes. So this is now a residential area. So that's 40 acres. I was looking at this traffic signal controller box here. It looks like it's vintage to the time period of Mayberry when they were all out here filming. So this is now all part of the Hayden Industrial Tract. There are a lot of entertainment uses still going on today. Desilu Studios that I mentioned before has a 7,000 square foot green room where they shot a number of videos, including some scenes for the Avengers, as well as a Nicki Minaj and Ariana Grande videos, music videos. So this property is still being used quite heavily for the entertainment industry. And I also understand that Hell's Kitchen is also filmed here in one of these buildings. Now, a little bit about the history. Cecil B. DeMille rented this facility in 1927. He built the King of Kings set. It was a Jerusalem set. The buildings that Cecil B. DeMille built was actually saved for King Kong in 1933. It was later burned, I understand, to make way for the Atlanta scenes for Gone with the Wind. The Union's train station was here, as well as Terra. It was up on a hill. They decided to take that set to Atlanta. They were going to try to reconstruct Terra down there. It's still in a barn somewhere down south. so nothing's been done with that. But fortunately, that set hasn't been destroyed. It's just in a number of different pieces. There were a number of streets here. Atlanta Street, there were some New York streets as well. Later, Desilu Productions, which was Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, they bought this facility for the purpose of filming different things. Millions of Americans like me just loved watching the Andy Griffith Show. It's so iconic. And the fact that the courthouse was just fake. It was right behind this building here, would have been on this spot behind this building, is where all that magic happened. I see a bunch of people scampering up Baldwin Hills there, or coming down. Looks like they're going up to take a look. A panoramic view of this entire area of Culver City. Now it's gotta be hard to believe, but the church that was used in the Andy Griffith Show was right here, approximately in this area. Andy's house would have been on a side street that goes off that direction as well. What looks like a painted black house on that building would have been right about where Andy's house was. The courthouse would have been right over there. I'm standing approximately where the camera was for this shot of Andy being chased by all the town folks at Mayberry as he leaves the courthouse. Presumably he's headed home down the street over this way. The street there that's in the Andy Griffith Show would have kind of followed this same path. And it should also be noted that right over here would have been where the great scene of citizen's arrest took place. Made a sweeping U-turn across the street, and he did a motor vehicle violation and came over to this side, to set on this side, and that's where Gomer said citizen's arrest. Did you know that you're sitting approximately where the citizen's arrest scene was recorded?
Citizen's arrest scene of what?
Don't tell me you don't know citizen's arrest scene.
Citizen's arrest scene.
Yeah. She's obviously not a Andy Griffith fan. Yes.
Andy Griffith would have been a little bit more information, but no, I'm not familiar with the Andy Griffith citizen's arrest scene.
As a small kid growing up in the 60s, I was also a huge fan of Batman, and there's a number of New York Gotham City scenes that were shot over in this area here. Again, everything's been dismantled here. Now this manhole cover that everybody is driving over could possibly be the same one that was here on the streets of Mayberry back in the 1960s. Andy Griffith Show was shot from 1960 to 1968. And there's some suggestion that some of the scenes recorded show this particular manhole cover. They're doing some kind of street work here, so it's gonna be a little loud for a while, but I'm gonna take you up and show you where Terra was located. As you can see, there's mostly industrial buildings around here. Absolutely nothing left. So it's gonna require a lot of imagination, but we are approaching the Atlanta area. There was a Union train station here for the movie Gone with the Wind, as well as Terra. Terra was on a hill here. It was just a fake front. It's just a fake building. Nothing was shot indoors. In 1959, an enterprise purchased it, took it to the south. They were going to try to reconstruct it in the south and make it a tourist attraction, but this is approximately where it would have been. The Union train station featured in Gone with the Wind, where all those wounded veterans were. Clark Gable and Vivian Leigh would have been out here shooting scenes in, I think, 1938, somewhere around that, because they released the film in 1939. It's also going to require a ton of imagination for you to see exactly where the Quonset huts were in Gomer Pyle, where Frank Sutton was always chewing out Jim Nabors for doing something wrong. Of course, Gomer Pyle was a huge show as a spin-off of the Andy Griffith Show.
Gomer Pyle, USMC. Starring Jim Nabors as Gomer Pyle.
This would have been where Gomer Pyle was shot. If those trees kind of border the Bologna Creek, so if you've gone that way, you've gone way past the 40 acres studio. It would have been right here, Gomer Pyle. If you're wondering where Wally's filling station was in Mayberry, it was in this area as well, facing the south towards the creek. On the other side of the creek was an overgrown area, and it was used as a set for Tarzan and his treehouse, and it too is all gone. As much as Hollywood likes to memorialize their past, there are no signs out here, no plaques, nothing whatsoever to indicate that all this great TV and movie magic was shot out here. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. So many iconic pictures and TV shows that we used to watch way back, all shot here. There were several episodes, I think 5 episodes of Bonanza were shot out here, but most of them were shot at a different lot. Now we've got a gym over here, shut off because of the pandemic. We've got industrial uses, we have studios. Now over here in this area is where there would have been a hotel and the theater. Now, something interesting about the hotel is that Superman George Reeves took a flying leap off that porch in a 1952 episode of the Adventures of Superman TV show. It really figures that I visited on a day in which they're doing some kind of road patching or some kind of road work. Where all these industrial buildings and a parking structure are at the eastern edge of the 40 acres was once the sets designed to look like a bombed-out European village. And they filmed a bunch of war movies here, including the story of G.I. Joe. One of those war movies was Verboten, starring James Best, and there's one scene that I found where he's actually on the veranda of the same building that would later become this Mayberry courthouse the following year. It's crazy to think that it was all shot right here, and it's all gone. Not one shred and one scintilla evidence that Mayberry was shot right here. But it was all located right here, rest assured, all the outdoor scenes shot right here. We're gonna head over to the Lillian Avenue Studios, now the Red Studios, was Desilu Studios, where all the indoor scenes were shot, as well as the indoor scenes for the Lucille Ball I Love Lucy show. I'm now on Cahuenga Avenue in Los Angeles and walking toward the front of what used to be the Desilu-Cahuenga Studios. This was one of the first major studios that began back in the 1920s, as Metro Studios to be exact. It changed hands and became the Motion Picture Studios. Now you Andy Griffith fans might remember that in season 6 in 1965, Andy and Aunt Bee and Opie went to Hollywood to watch the filming of a TV show that was based on his life called Sheriff Without a Gun. In the Taylors Go to Hollywood episode, the three were invited to a tour of the studios. And the very front here is exactly where Aunt Bee, Andy, and Opie began their tour. You can see them contact the guard at the front gate here. Only for the episode, they changed the name of the studio to Belmont Studios. The front of this studio also was used in scenes for the movie Roger Rabbit, 1988. Only the facade was changed to appear as maroon cartoons. I also found a scene from the Gomer Pyle TV show where Jim Nabors drives a Jeep right through that gate.
Private First Class Gomer Pyle reporting, sir. I know I'm supposed to be in formation, but I've got some good news, sir. Real good news.
At ease.
I'm going to show you a bungalow on the other side of the street here that was actually in the background of a Buster Keaton film. It's still here. So in 1920, Buster Keaton filmed a movie called 1 Week, and in it, he constructed a house rather sloppily, and a number of pratfalls were done. This building is actually in the background of the scene where he's hammering nails on top of the wall that he's building. So this building goes back to the 1920s. And look at those bricks. It's kind of cool how they have those bricks. This is now Red Studios Hollywood. Back in 1955, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz purchased this for the filming of the I Love Lucy TV show.
There it is. That's where we made the I Love Lucy shows, which we're filming in front of live audiences. You see, most of those sound stages are equipped with seats for just that purpose. And we plan to do our Lucy specials over there, see?
For the first 2 years of that show, they shot all their episodes at the Paramount Studio. They liked the fact that the sound stages here were equipped with seating for a live audience, so they bought it and named it Desilu-Cahuenga Studios. I Love Lucy wrapped up its final season in 1957. Andy Griffith came along in 1960, and all of the indoor scenes were shot in Studios 1 and 2. The Danny Thomas Show was shot on the soundstage in front, which coincidentally is where Andy Griffith was first introduced in 1959 as a TV episode. Dick Van Dyke's Show was also shot here, as was Gomer Pyle and Golden Girls. This is also where Ralph Edwards did all of those This Is Your Life TV series. And some of the guests who came here were people like Rock Hudson, Betty Davis, Roy Rogers, Gloria Swanson, Jane Mansfield, Oliver Hardy, and Stan Laurel. So now I'm going to go to the back side, the Lillian Way side, and show you exactly where Desilu Studios is located, where they filmed I Love Lucy, as well as Andy Griffith Show. If I'm not mistaken, this big soundstage here is where they filmed Gomer Pyle. Been painted gray or dark gray. Back in those days, it was all white. All kinds of building taking place around here. Looks like some apartment buildings going up here. So right across the street is the entrance, the Southgate entrance to Red Studios. It was at one time Desilu Studios, and it's right there on that sidewalk that you'll see little Ronnie Howard with his dad Rance Howard and his brother Clint Howard walking very happy at the end of a day of a shooting right down that sidewalk past the gate, which at that time had a chain link fence gate that slid across the ground there. I believe, since it says that is studio number 3, I believe at that time they were studios 1 and 2. So this would have been a place where Don Knotts and Andy Griffith and all the cast would have entered right through here back in 1960. The show ran from 1960 to 1965. So right across from Studio 1 and 2, there were a number of bungalow houses that were right here where this parking structure is. This is not progress, if you ask me. This palm tree here indicates there were some houses here back in the 30s. Just on the other side of this wall, now a parking lot, were houses that were used in episodes of the Andy Griffith Show, 830 Lillian Way. There were at least 3 houses that were used. This would have been the front yard of these houses. The 1962 episode Farmer Takes a Wife was shot right here, as well as One Punch Opie was also shot here. In the One Punch Opie scene, Andy rolls up here right after the lamp is broke, and it looked like Opie did it, but he didn't. So he got in trouble for that. Goober was confronted out here by a customer played by Larry Hovis, who trusted him to fix the car when Goober really wasn't a good mechanic. But that scene was shot out here in front of these houses. In the Farmer Takes a Wife episode, you may remember that Alan Hale came out from the country. He was a farmer looking for a wife. He decided to court Thelma Lou, who was Barney's girl. Barney tells the farmer out in front of the house here that Thelma Lou is his girl, but Hale confirms that Barney hasn't officially proposed to her, so she's fair game for courtship. That was shot out here. These two doors here were used for the filming, and a lot of the cast and crew came out of here, and I think the audience also came out here as well, came through these doors. Right here, these doors were the Desilu Studio doors right here. That little iron bracket there you see is also visible in a picture, early picture that I found online. And there was a sign there, I believe it said Desilu Productions or Desilu Studios. So you can imagine Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz probably came out those doors, got in their cars and took off. This area has changed quite a bit. If I'm not mistaken, those telephone poles that are in the background, I think running behind that building or the alleyway, are the same telephone poles that were here back in the day when Andy Griffith was shooting movies right out here at those houses that are no longer there, marked by that palm tree right there. When I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, I enjoyed watching reruns of I Love Lucy, of course. I always thought that that apartment was actually shot in New York. In my mind, it was in New York, but it was actually shot in that building right there. I have to share one funny story associated with that I Love Lucy. When I was a kid, we were real little. My brother and I just got out of the bath and walked out naked in front of the TV screen, and of course I Love Lucy was on, and my brother says, "You better put your clothes on because she can see you." And I mocked him because I said, "No, it doesn't work that way." Golden Girls were shot here in 1994. Madonna did her Material Girl video right here as well. This dates back to the golden age of Hollywood for sure. You think about Roman Navarro with swashbuckling here. The studios takes up almost the entire block except for this brick building, which was the Boys and Girls Club of Hollywood. I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of History Hunters. We hope that you enjoyed seeing some of the places where the Andy Griffith Show took place, both the indoor and outdoor scenes. I want to thank you so much, and if you have a chance, give us a comment and a like, as well as subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.